Hi guys, tonight we are beginning a new journey together, long, quiet exploration into a world that exists now only in sepia-toned photographs and the hushed pages of history books. This is the first part of a 10-part series where we will step back in time, not to the roar of cannons or the chaos of the charge, but to the stillness of the everyday. We are going to explore the quiet, rhythmic life of a soldier in the Great War, focusing on the long hours of waiting, the small comforts found in the mud, and the strange, haunting beauty of a landscape transformed by human hands. Before we begin, I want you to make sure you are comfortable. Adjust your pillow. Pull your blanket up to your chin, feeling its weight settle over you. Take a deep breath in, and let it out slowly. Let the sounds of the modern world fade away, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, the glow of your screen. Imagine the air around you growing slightly cooler, smelling of damp earth and wood smoke. We are traveling back to 1915, to a narrow slice of land in northern France. Close your eyes. Listen to the rhythm of my voice as we step into the past. The journey toward the front had been a slow, rhythmic dissolution of the world you once knew. For days, the green fields of the French countryside had been sliding past the slats of a railway wagon, a blur of emerald and gold, peppered with the red splashes of poppies. But as the train stopped and the march began, those colors started to drain away, as if the earth itself were becoming tired. The cobblestone roads gave way to dirt tracks, and the dirt tracks eventually gave way to a landscape that looked less like a farm and more like the surface of a lonely, forgotten moon. You are arriving now. It is late afternoon, that soft, bruised hour when the sun begins to dip behind a veil of low-hanging clouds. Your pack is heavier, familiar, dull ache across your shoulders. The straps of your webbing creak with every step, a rhythmic creak-snap that has become the metronome of your life. Your boots, once polished to a mirror shine in a barracks far away, are now coated in a thick, buttery layer of clay. It's a pale, grey-brown mud that seems to possess a life of its own, clinging to the leather, weighing down your feet, making every step a deliberate act of will. As you move deeper into the reserve lines, the world becomes strangely quiet. You expected a roar, a constant thunder, but instead there is only a heavy, expectant silence. It is a silence layered with small, wet sounds, the drip of water from a leafless branch, the squelch of a boot, the distant, muffled thump of something far away that feels more like a heartbeat than an explosion. The air here is different. It is thick and cool, carrying the scent of a world turned inside out. It smells of wet wool, the heavy, sodden scent of your own tunic, and the sharp, metallic tang of the soil. There is the faint, persistent odor of chloride of lime used to purify the water, and the sweet, clinging smell of tobacco smoke drifting from unseen holes in the ground. But mostly, it smells of earth, raw, deep, ancient earth that has been churned and stirred until it has forgotten how to be still. You turn a corner into a communication trench. This is your first real sight of the labyrinth. The walls are higher than your head, carved into the clay with a precision that speaks of thousands of hours of unseen labor. The sides are braced with woven branches wattle and held back by thick wooden posts that look like the ribs of a great, buried beast. You run your hand along the wall as you walk. The clay is cold and slick, like smooth stone, and you can see the marks of the spades that shaped it, rhythmic grooves left by men who were here before you. Underfoot, there are duckboard slotted wooden walkways that float precariously on a sea of sludge. They clatter softly as you walk, a hollow wooden sound that echoes between the narrow walls. You have to watch your step, balancing your weight, feeling the slight spring of the wood. Beneath the slats, you can see the dark shimmer of water, reflecting the pale grey sky above. As you move further toward the front line, you begin to see the inhabitants of this subterranean city. They are leaning against the walls, sitting on small wooden boxes, or crouched over small spirit lamps. They don't look like the soldiers in the recruitment posters. They look like men who have become part of the landscape itself. Their uniforms are the color of the walls, their skin dusted with the same fine, grey silt. They watch you pass with a quiet, unhurried curiosity. There is no cheering, no shouting, just a slow blink, a nod of a head, the shared silence of people who know exactly what you are feeling. You see a man sitting on a fire step, his rifle resting across his knees like a sleeping pet. He is meticulously cleaning a small piece of metal with a rag, his movements slow and hypnotic. He doesn't look up as you pass, but you see the steam rising from a tin mug at his feet, a thin white ribbon of vapor curling into the damp air. The tension here isn't sharp or jagged, it's heavy. It's a physical weight that settles on your chest, not of fear, but of profound, shared waiting. Everyone is waiting. The earth is waiting. The sky is waiting. Finally, you reach your section. A corporal, his face etched with lines of exhaustion that look like topographical maps, points to a small opening in the trench wall. "This is us," he says, his voice a low rasp that barely disturbs the air. "Home, sweet home." You duck your head and step into the dugout. It is a small, timber-framed cave carved directly into the wall of the trench. The ceiling is low, forced by the weight of several feet of earth above you. Inside, it is dark, lit only by the flickering flame of a single candle stuck into a dry crust of wax on a ration tin. The air is warmer here, smelling of old socks, stale tea, and the comforting, earthy scent of a root cellar. There are bunks made of wire, mesh, and rough-hewn timber. You find an empty one and slowly, carefully, begin to shed your pack. You feel the sudden lightness in your shoulders, a sensation so strange it almost makes you feel as though you might float away. You lay your pack on the dirt floor and sit down on the edge of the bunk. The wire mesh creaks under your weight. You reach down and begin to unlace your boots. Your fingers are a bit stiff from the cold, the leather laces wet and swollen. As you pull the boots off, you feel the cool air hit your tired feet, a sensation of pure, simple relief. You lean back against the cool, damp timber of the wall and close your eyes for a moment. This is your space now, a few square feet of the earth's crust. You look around the small room. There is a shelf carved into the dirt where someone has left, a crumpled newspaper and a small wooden carving of a bird. On the floor, a discarded tin of plum and apple jam sits silently. These small traces of humanity make the space feel less like a hole and more like a dwelling. You realize, with a slow, sinking clarity, that the world above the world of houses and paved streets and white sheets has become a dream. This is the reality. The wood, the wire, the candle, and the weight of the hill above you. Outside, the light is fading into a deep, velvety blue. The stand-to is approaching the hour at dawn and dusk when every man takes his place on the fire step. Watching the misty expanse of no man's land, you stand up, your socks padding softly on the earth floor, and move back out into the trench. The sky is a vast, darkening bowl. A single star begins to blink through a rift in the clouds. The air has grown even stiller, if that's possible. You climb up onto the fire step a ledge of earth reinforced with sandbags. You rest your elbows on the rough burlap. The fabric is damp and smells of jute and dust. Looking out over the parapet, you see the world as a series of shadows. The barbed wire entanglements are silhouettes of tangled thorns, catching the last of the light. The ground beyond is a chaotic sea of craters and ridges, frozen in time. There is no movement, no sound of birds, just the wind, a low, grieving whistle as it passes over the open mouths of the shell holes. Beside you, another soldier leans against the sandbags. You can't see his face clearly in the twilight, but you can see the orange glow of his cigarette. He exhales a long, slow cloud of smoke that hangs in the air before drifting toward the enemy lines. "Quiet tonight," he whispers. "It's not a question, just an observation." "Yeah," you reply. Your own voice sounds strange to use more and thin against the vastness of the landscape. "First night?" he asks. "First night," he nods slowly. "The mud's the worst of it. Keep your socks dry, and you'll be all right. The rest is just waiting." You stand there together for a long time, two shadows against the darkening earth. You watch as the first very light AFLA is fired from somewhere far down the line. It rises slowly, a brilliant, searing white spark that arches across the sky. For a few seconds, the world is bathed in an artificial, ghostly glare. The mud glistens like silver. The wire casts long, skeletal shadows. The craters look like deep, black eyes. Then, the flare flickers and dies, and the darkness rushes back in, deeper and more profound than before. It's time to go back down. The night watch is being organized. You won't be on for a few hours yet. You return to the dugout, moving by touch and the faint, golden glow of the candle. You wrap yourself in your greatcoat. The wool is thick and heavy, a portable fortress against the damp. You lie down on the wire bunk, pulling a rough wool blanket over you. The night does not end with a sudden burst of light. In the labyrinth of the trenches, morning arrives not as a golden herald, but as a slow, subtle shifting of the shadows. It is a gradual transition from the deep, velvety blackness of sleep into a world composed of infinite shades of grey. You are lying on your wire bunk, the mesh beneath you having long ago conformed to the shape of your body. The air in the dugout is heavy and still, thick with the scent of damp earth. The lingering ghost of tobacco, and the rhythmic, deep breathing of men who have found a temporary sanctuary in the dark. Your eyes open slowly. There is no urgency in the movement. You don't wake up to a shout or a bell. You wake up to the cold. It is a creeping, persistent cold that has spent the night navigating the folds of your greatcoat and the fibers of your wool blanket. It settles on your cheeks and the tip of your nose like a fine, invisible frost. You remain still for a long time, watching the way the darkness seems to thin around the edges of the dugout's entrance. Above you, the heavy timber beams are barely visible, their rough-hewn surfaces slick with the moisture that is condensed from the breath of the sleeping men. A single drop of water, heavy and cold, detaches itself from the ceiling. You watch it fall, a tiny, dark bead in the gloom, and you hear it land with a soft, muffled thud on the dirt floor near your pack. It is the first sound of your day. Beside you, a figure stirs. It is a slow, liquid movement. A hand reaches out from beneath a pile of blankets, groping for a boot. There is the faint, dry rustle of wool, the creak of the wire bunk, and the long, slow exhale of a man re-entering the world of the living. No one speaks. Speech is a luxury for later, for when the sun has climbed high enough to warm the bones. For now, there is only the communal ritual of rising. You sit up. The movement is stiff, your joints protesting the dampness that has seeped into them overnight. You reach for your tunic, which feels heavy and slightly damp to the touch. Putting it on is a deliberate process. You feel the weight of the fabric settle on your shoulders, the cold brass buttons sliding through the buttonholes with a faint snick. Then come the puttees, the long strips of wool tape that you wrap around your calves. This is a rhythmic, hypnotic task. Round and round, starting at the ankle, ensuring each layer overlaps perfectly with the one below it, creating a protective spiral that keeps the mud at bay. You focus on the tension of the cloth, the way it binds your legs, providing a sense of stability in a world of shifting sludge. Finally, the boots. They are cold and stiff. Sliding your feet into them feels like stepping into two hollowed-out stones. You pull the laces tight, feeling the leather bite into the bridge of your foot. You stand up, your head brushing against the low ceiling. The floor is cold through the soles of your boots, but the act of standing brings a flicker of warmth to your blood. Moving toward the dugout entrance, you step over the legs of those still resting. You emerge into the trench, and the world is a pale, ethereal wash of silver grey. This is the hour of the stautu. It is a moment of profound, shared stillness. Every man in the line is now awake, standing on the fire step, their rifles resting on the parapet. You find your place. The wood of the fire step is wet under your boots. You lean your chest against the cold, damp burlap of the sandbags. Looking out over the rim of the trench, the landscape is unrecognizable. A thick, milky mist has rolled in during the night, clinging to the contours of the earth. It wraps itself around the barbed wire, turning the jagged metal into a series of delicate, frozen lace patterns. The shell holes are invisible, hidden beneath the white shroud. The world feels small, intimate, and infinitely quiet. You rest your hands on the cold steel of your rifle. The metal is slick with dew. Beside you, the corporal stands as still as a statue, his eyes fixed on the mist. His breath comes in small, rhythmic clouds of white vapor that drift away and vanish into the grey. No one moves. No one talks. You are all part of the silence. A line of shadows waiting for the light to reclaim the world. The transition is agonizingly slow. The grey begins to lift, turning into a pale, watery blue. The mist starts to thin, revealing the skeletal remains of a distant tree, its branches reaching out like fractured fingers. You watch the way the light catches the frost on the wire, turning it for a fleeting second into a string of diamonds before the moisture melts and turns back into simple, cold water. As the light grows stronger, the tension of the stand too begins to dissolve. It doesn't break. It simply melts away. The order is given to stand down. It is passed along the line in a series of low whispers and nods. The rigidity leaves the shoulders of the men. They step down from the fire step, their movements becoming more fluid, more human. Now comes the ritual of the morning meal. It is the most important hour of the day, a time of small domestic comforts carved out of the clay. You move back toward a slightly wider section of the trench where a small brazier has been lit. The fire is small, fed by scraps of wood and charcoal, its orange glow a warm, inviting contrast to the grey morning. The smells begin to change. The scent of wet earth is joined by the sharp, invigorating aroma of woodsmoke and the sweet, metallic smell of tea. You take your mess tinner, simple, dented piece of aluminum and wait your turn. The cook, a man whose face is permanently smudged with soot, ladles a thick, dark liquid into your tin. It is tea, But it is more than that. It is hot, and it is sweet, and it tastes of condensed milk and wood smoke. You hold the tin with both hands, feeling the heat radiate through the metal into your palms. You close your eyes and take a sip. The warmth travels down your throat, spreading through your chest, reaching into your cold fingers and toes. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated sensory pleasure. Beside the tea, you are given a thick slice of bread and a piece of cold, salty bacon. The bread is hard, the crust demanding effort to chew, but it is satisfying. You eat slowly, savoring every mouthful, the simple act of chewing becoming a meditative rhythm. As you eat, the trench begins to hum with the quiet activity of the morning. Men are sitting on ammunition boxes or leaning against the walls, their mess tins balanced on their knees. There is a low murmur of conversation, not about the war, but about the quality of the tea, the news from home, or the strange dreams they had in the night. The sound of a spoon scraping against the bottom of a tin, the occasional clatter of a rifle being moved, the distant, rhythmic thud, thud, thud of a pile driver far behind. The lines, these are the sounds of the morning. After the meal comes the maintenance of the tools of your trade. This is done with a slow, deliberate care that borders on the religious. You find a relatively dry spot on the fire step and sit down. You take your rifle, the Lee Enfield, that has become an extension of your own body. You begin to disassemble it, your fingers moving with a familiarity that requires no thought. You remove the bolt. The metal is cold, but as you work, it begins to warm in your hands. You take a piece of soft flannel, known as a 4-biter, and soak it in a small amount of oil. The smell of the oil is sharp and clean. The scent of Young's No Zero. You pull the rag through the barrel of the rifle using a long weighted cord. You do this again and again, your movements slow and rhythmic. You watch the way the oil leaves a thin, shimmering film on the steel, protecting it from the omnipresent dampness of the trench. You clean the bolt, removing every speck of grit and dust. You wipe down the wooden stock, feeling the grain of the walnut beneath your fingertips. There is no hurry. In the trench, time is a vast, open ocean, and the cleaning of your rifle is an anchor that keeps you grounded. It is a task that has a beginning, a middle, and an ender, rare thing in a world of endless waiting. As you work, you observe the small details of your immediate environment. You see a beetle struggling to climb the vertical wall of the trench, its tiny legs churning the clay. You watch a spider spinning a web between two support posts, the silver threads vibrating in the slight breeze. These small lives continue, indifferent to the massive human drama unfolding around them. They provide a sense of perspective, a reminder that the world is larger than this narrow corridor of earth. The morning sun is now high enough to cast long, slanting shadows across the trench. The light is pale and golden, highlighting the textures of the world, the rough burlap of the sandbags, the splintered wood of the duckboards, the dark, wet patches on the trench walls. The air is still cool, but the biting edge of the dawn has vanished. You reassemble your rifle. The bolt slides back into place with a satisfying, metallic clack. You pull the trigger, hearing the dry, hollow sound of the firing pin hitting nothing. You wipe your oily hands on a rag and lean back against the wall. The waiting begins in earnest now. This is the true essence of life in the line. It is not a frantic, high-stakes waiting, but a slow, heavy endurance. You watch the clouds drift across the narrow strip of sky visible above the parapet. They are white and puffy, moving with a lazy, unhurried grace. You find yourself tracing their shapes: a horse, a ship, a faisant who they dissolve and reshape into something else. Occasionally, the silence is broken. Far away, to the north, there is a low, rolling rumble. It sounds like distant thunder on a summer afternoon, a sound that is both ominous and strangely comforting in its regularity. The afternoon sun has begun its long, slow descent, casting golden ribbons of light across the upper rim of the trench. The shadows of the parados are stretching out, reaching across the duckboards to touch the opposite wall. It is in this softening of the day that a new sensation begins to emerge, not a sound or a sight, but a feeling. It is the slow, hollow ache of hunger, a gentle reminder from the body that the light of day is waning and the time for the evening meal is approaching. In this subterranean world, the arrival of food is not just a necessity. It is a profound ritual, a cornerstone of the day that brings a sense of order and humanity to the long hours of waiting. The preparation begins far behind the lines, in field kitchens where large communal pots, known as dixies, bubble over wood fires. But here, in the frontline section, the experience is more intimate, more focused on the small, personal ways a man can turn a ration into a meal. Listen to the sounds that signal the start of this ritual. It begins with a distant, rhythmic clinking, the sound of metal against metal. It is the ration party, moving slowly through the communication trenches, carrying the heavy containers of tea and stew. The sound is muffled by the earth, arriving in soft waves, growing steadily clearer as they draw near. Along with the sound comes the scent. It is a rich, heavy aroma that cuts through the ever-present smell of damp clay and wood smoke. It is the scent of salt, of boiled beef, of onions, and the deep, earthy sweetness of carrots as the containers arrive. The men emerge from their dugouts like shadows. There is no rush, no frantic crowding. Instead, there is a quiet, orderly transition. You pick up your mess tin, the two-piece aluminum set that has been your constant companion. It is dented and scratched, the metal dulled by use, but it is clean. You feel its familiar weight in your hands, the cool surface warming slightly as you hold it. You wait your turn in the soft light of the late afternoon. When the lid of the dixie is lifted, a great cloud of white steam billows upward, swirling into the cool air of the trench. It carries with it the full force of the meal's warmth. You hold your tin out, and the cook ladles in a generous portion of maconochie, a thick, hearty meat and vegetable stew. You watch as the liquid settles, the surface shimmering with small beads of golden fat that catch the fading sunlight. There are chunks of potato, softened until they are almost creamy, and slices of turnip that have absorbed the savory richness of the broth. Beside the stew, you receive your ration of bread. Today it is fresh ore, as fresh as the field bakeries can provide. The crust is thick and dark, dusted with a fine layer of flour, and the inside is dense and chewy. You tuck the bread under your arm or place it carefully in the lid of your mess tin, guarding it like a small treasure. You find a place to sit, perhaps on an empty ammunition box or a dry patch of the fire step. You are surrounded by your comrades, each man occupied with his own tin, yet there is a deep sense of shared experience. The air is filled with the sound of quiet eating, the soft scrape of a spoon against aluminum, the tearing of bread, the rhythmic chewing. It is a peaceful sound, the sound of a community at rest. The first taste of the stew is a revelation. It is warm, salty, and incredibly satisfying. As the hot liquid hits your tongue, you feel a wave of comfort spread through your body. The saltiness wakes up your senses, while the fat provides a richness that feels like a physical embrace. You take a piece of the bread and dip it into the broth, watching as the crumb soaks up the liquid, turning a pale golden color. When you eat it, the bread is soft and heavy, carrying the flavor of the stew deep into your chest. As you eat, the flavors begin to trigger memories. Taste is a powerful bridge to the past. The saltiness of the beef might remind you of a Sunday roast in a small dining room with lace curtains. The sweetness of the carrots might bring back the image of a vegetable garden behind a terraced house, where the earth smelled of rain and marigolds. For a moment, you are not in a trench in France. You are back in a world where meals were served on ceramic plates, and the only sound was the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. You look at the man sitting next to you. He is eating slowly, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon above the parapet. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, crumpled paper packet. He opens it carefully, revealing a few grains of salt and a pinch of pepper he has saved from a previous meal. He shares it with you, a silent gesture of solidarity. You sprinkle a little onto your stew, the sharp bite of the pepper adding a new dimension to the flavor. This simple act of sharing creates a bond that requires no words. It is an acknowledgement of your shared humanity, a way of saying, I am here, and you are here, and we are together in this moment. After the stew comes the most sacred part of the meal, the tea. In the trenches, tea is more than a drink. It is a lifeline. It is made in the same large dixies, brewed strong and dark, and sweetened heavily with condensed milk and sugar. The water often carries a faint, metallic tense from the petrol tins used to transport it. But the strength of the tea and the sweetness of the milk mask, creating a flavor that is unique to the front line. You hold your enamel mug in both hands. The metal is hot, almost too hot to touch, but the warmth is welcome. The tea is a deep, opaque tan color, the surface smooth and inviting. You blow softly across the top, watching the steam dance and swirl. The first sip is searingly hot, sweet, and incredibly reviving. The tannins in the tea provide a gentle astringency that cleanses the palate after the richness of the stew, while the sugar provides a sudden, welcome spark of energy. The ritual of the tea is a slow one. You don't gulp it down. You savor it, one small sip at a time. You feel the heat traveling down your throat, warming your core, radiating outward to your extremities. In the damp chill of the trench, this internal warmth is a luxury beyond price. It softens the edges of the day, making the world feel a little less harsh, a little more bearable. As you sit with your tea, the conversation begins to flow more freely. It is never loud, always a low, melodic murmur that blends with the evening shadows. You talk about the simple things. Someone mentions a letter they received from a sister who has started working in a factory. Another man describes the taste of a specific type of apple that grows in his father's orchard, how it is crisp and tart, with a skin that snaps when you bite into it. These stories are like the tea warm, sweet, and deeply comforting. They are a way of keeping the world out there alive in the world in here. There is a particular kind of quiet that descends after a meal. It is a contented, heavy silence. The physical hunger has been stilled, and the body feels a sense of temporary peace. You lean back against the trench wall, your empty mess tin resting at your feet. The sun has finally dipped below the horizon, and the sky is a deep, bruised purple, fading into the first stars of the evening. In this twilight hour, someone might produce a small treat from a comfort bag sent from home. Perhaps it is a tin of plum and apple jam. This jam is a staple of trench life, So common it has become a joke among the men, but tonight it is a delicacy. The tin is opened with a small key, the lid peeling back to reveal the dark ruby reed preserve. It smells of summer fruit and boiled sugar. You take a small dollop of the jam on a piece of hardtack biscuit. The hardtack is a thick, square cracker, famously difficult to bite into. Most men soak it in their tea or stew to soften it, but with the jam, it becomes a different kind of experience. The sweetness of the fruit cuts through the dry, floury taste of the biscuit, creating a simple, rustic dessert. You let the jam melt on your tongue, closing your eyes and imagining the orchards of Kent or the berry bushes of the Scottish Highlands. The taste of the fruit is a vivid splash of colour in a world of grey and brown. The light is failing now, and the first very lights begin to rise into the sky, their white glare illuminating the landscape for a few brief seconds. But here, in the bottom of the trench, the world remains intimate and warm. You watch the small glow of a pipe as a soldier nearby takes a slow, rhythmic pull. The smoke curls upward, smelling of cherry wood and old leather. It is a comforting domestic scent that settles into the air like a blanket. You begin the process of cleaning your mess tin. You use a handful of dry grass or a piece of rough burlap to wipe away the remains of the stew. There is no water to waste on washing, so you scrub until the aluminum shines in the starlight. You nest the two pieces together, the metal making a soft, familiar click. You place the tin back into your haversack, ready for the next time the clinking of the dixies announces the arrival of the world. The evening stand too is approaching, but for now there is a moment of profound stillness. You feel the weight of the meal in your stomach, a solid, grounding presence. The cold of the night is beginning to settle in, but the warmth of the tea still lingers in your chest. You are part of a long line of men stretching across the fields of France, all of whom have just shared this same ritual, this same taste of home, this same moment of quiet reflection. The food has done more than nourish your body. It has nourished your spirit. It has reminded you that you are part of a world that values care, preparation, and the simple pleasure of a shared table, even if that table is a wooden box in a hole in the ground. The transition from the dry, dusty stillness of the afternoon to the damp, saturated world of the rain begins with a shift in the air's density. It is a slow, methodical change. You can feel it in your lungs before you see it on the ground. A sudden, sharp cooling of the breeze and the smell of ozone mixing with the deep, ancient scent of the upturned earth. The sky, which had been a pale, fading violet, has now dissolved into a heavy, seamless ceiling of slate grey. There are no individual clouds anymore, just a vast, low-hanging weight that seems to rest right upon the edges of the parapet. Then the first drop falls. It lands with a soft, singular tap on the brim of your steel helmet. For a moment, there is silence again. Then another drop hits a discarded tin, a bright, metallic ping that echoes in the narrow corridor of the trench. Within minutes, the singular sounds merge into a continuous, rhythmic whisper. It is not a violent storm. It is a persistent, relentless drizzle, the kind of rain that does not bounce off the earth, but is instead absorbed by it, invited in until the world can hold no more. Listen to the transformation of the sounds around you. The dry, hollow clatter of boots on the duckboards begins to soften, turning into a wet, rhythmic slap-squelch. The wind, catching the corners of the corrugated iron sheets used for roofing the dugouts, creates a low, vibrating hum. The rain on the sandbags makes a sound like thousands of tiny, muffled drums. It is a hypnotic, layered soundscape that draws a curtain around your world, making the trench feel even more isolated, more private. As the hours pass, the very geometry of your home begins to change. The walls of the trench, once firm and sculpted, start to glisten with a dark, oily sheen. The clay, which had been dry and brittle, softens into a substance that is neither solid nor liquid. This is the beginning of the mud, the true, constant companion of the soldier. In the Great War, mud was not merely dirt and water. It was a living, breathing entity with a character all its own. In this part of the line, it is a thick, viscous clay, the color of old pewter. It is incredibly heavy. You watch as a small rivulet of water carves a path down the side of the trench, carrying with it a fine silt that settles in the gaps between the duckboards. Soon, the boards begin to vanish. They don't disappear all at once. They sink, slowly and gracefully, into the rising tide of sludge. When you step down from the fire step now, your boot doesn't hit wood. It is met by a soft, resisting pressure. The mud reaches for the eyelets of your boots, wrapping around the leather with a suction that is almost magnetic. Every step requires a conscious effort, a slow, steady pull to break the seal of the earth. You watch the way the mud clings to everything. It climbs up your puttees, layer by layer, turning the neat wool wraps into heavy, solid pillars. It finds its way onto the stock of your rifle, into the creases of your elbows, and onto the very skin of your face. But there is a strange, meditative quality to it. You stop fighting it. You learn the physics of the mud, how to balance your weight, how to find the hidden supports beneath the surface, how to move with the earth rather than against it. There is a specific sensation to wearing wet wool that becomes the background radiation of your life. Your greatcoat, once a relatively light shield against the wind, has now absorbed several pounds of water. It feels monumental. The fabric grows thick and stiff, pressing down on your shoulders with a constant, grounding weight. It smells deeply of sheep, wet dog, and woodsmoke, pungent, organic scent that is strangely comforting in its honesty. You feel the dampness creeping in. It starts at the seams of your shoulders and at the cuffs of your sleeves. The wool doesn't get wet in the way cotton does. It becomes saturated, holding the moisture against your skin. But wool has a magical property. Even when wet, it retains a ghost of your body heat. You create a small, humid microclimate between your skin and the fabric. As long as you keep moving, as long as you stay tucked into your coat, you are encased in a warm, damp cocoon. Your fingers are the first to truly feel the bite. The cold rain has washed away the natural oils of your skin, leaving your hands pale and wrinkled. You look at your fingernails. They are stained with the grey silt of the trench, a permanent mark of your environment. Your joints feel a little stiff, a little slow. You find yourself tucking your hands into your armpits or deep into the folds of your coat, seeking the warmth of your core. You learn to do everything: cleaning your rifle, lighting a match, opening a tin, with a slow, deliberate economy of motion. You don't rush. Rushing only leads to fumbled movements and wasted energy in the silence of the rain. The most important activity in the trench is the care of the feet. This is a quiet, almost sacred ritual performed in the dim light of the dugouts. It is born of a very real, very persistent fear: trench foot. You sit on the edge of your bunk, the candle flame flickering as the wind sighs outside. You slowly, carefully peel off your sodden boots. The leather is heavy and dark, smelling of the earth. Then the socks. This is the moment of greatest vulnerability. You pull them off to reveal your feet pale damp and chilled. The remedy is whale oil. It comes in small tins, a thick, yellow-white grease that has a faint, fishy odor. You take a generous scoop of the oil and begin to rub it into your skin. It is a slow, rhythmic process. You massage your toes, the arches of your feet, and your ankles. The oil creates a waterproof barrier, a shield against the pervasive dampness. It feels strange, slippery, and warm, but as you work it in, you feel the circulation returning, a pleasant tingle in your skin. Then, the most precious item in your possession, the dry socks. You likely have a spare pair tucked inside your tunic, kept warm and dry by the heat of your own chest. Pulling on a pair of dry wool socks after the oil treatment is a sensation of pure, unadulterated luxury. For a few minutes, your feet feel as though they belong to a different world of carpets and firesides. You cherish this feeling, holding on to it as you slide your feet back into the damp boots. It is a small victory, a daily defiance against the elements. The war is not fought with bullets alone, but with socks and grease and the patience of a man who knows how to keep his feet dry as the rain continues to fall. You observe the many ways the men have adapted to this watery world. You see the small tricks, the bits of ingenuity that make life possible. The sacking, screen. Someone has hung a piece of rough burlap over the entrance of the dugout. It doesn't stop the rain, but it breaks the wind and catches the heaviest of the drips, funneling them away from the sleeping area. The tin shield. You see a soldier who has taken an empty biscuit tin, flattened it out, and wedged it above his firing position on the parapet. It creates a tiny, dry eavesdrop that keeps the water from running down his neck as he stands watch. The straw islands. In the deeper parts of the trench, men have thrown down bundles of straw or old wooden crates to create islands in the mud. Moving through the trench becomes a game of stepping from one solid point to another, a slow-motion dance across the sludge. The internal fire. You find that drinking hot liquid is more than just nutrition. It is a way to heat the body from the inside out. You hold your mug of tea not just to drink, but to warm your face in the steam, letting the heat soak into your cheeks and forehead. You adapt physically to your posture changes. You learn the trench slouch, a way of tucking your chin into your collar and rounding your shoulders to minimize the surface area exposed to the rain. You become adept at sleeping in a seated position, your head resting on your chest, your hands tucked away. You find that you can drift off to the sound of the rain, the constant patter becoming a lullaby that drowns out the quiet anxieties of the mind. There comes a point in a long rain where you move past discomfort and into a state of total resignation. It is a strangely peaceful place to be. You are wet. Your clothes are heavy. The world is mud. Once you accept this, the struggle ceases. You no longer try to avoid the puddles. You simply walk through them. You no longer curse the drip from the ceiling. You simply move your pack a few inches to the left. In this state, your senses become incredibly sharp. You notice the way the light from a single flare reflects in the millions of tiny ripples on the surface of a flooded shell hole. You notice the way the rain turns the barbed wire into a string of liquid pearls. You notice the different sounds of the rain, the high-pitched hiss as it falls on the grass, the deep, hollow thud as it hits the mud, the musical tinkle as it runs down a corrugated pipe. The silence of the rain is a heavy, blanketed silence. It feels as though the whole world has been wrapped in cotton wool. The distant guns are muffled. their thunder sounding like nothing more than the low grumble of a sleeping giant. The war feels very far away. There is only the rain, the mud, and the rhythmic, steady pulse of your own heart. You look at your fellow soldiers. They are grey ghosts in the mist, their faces obscured by the brims of their helmets and the steam of their breath. You see the same resignation in their eyes, the same quiet endurance. You are all part of the same watery landscape, a brotherhood of the damp. There is no need for words. A shared nod, a brief smile as you pass each other in the gloom. These are enough. The rain has finally ceased, leaving behind a world that is heavy, saturated, and profoundly, unnervingly still. The clouds have begun to fracture, breaking apart into great slow-moving islands of silver and white, drifting across a sky that is a pale, translucent blue. In the wake of the storm, the trench has settled into a state of suspended animation. There is no wind. There is no movement. There is only the long, stretching expanse of the afternoon, a vast, open sea of time that you must navigate without moving a single muscle dot. Waiting in the line is not a state of boredom. It is a state of being. It is an active, quiet occupation that consumes the hours with a slow, rhythmic intensity. It is a form of meditation, a deep, internal narrowing of the world until the only things that exist are the texture of the earth against your back, the rhythm of your own breath, and the slow, inevitable passage of light across the trench floor. You are sitting on the fire step, your back braced against the damp, cool clay of the parados. Your rifle rests beside you, its steel barrel cool and silent. You have no tasks to perform. No orders have been given. The world has simply decided to pause, and you have paused along with it. Take a breath. A long, slow, deep breath. The air is clean and sharp, smelling of wet earth and the faint, sweet scent of distant grass. Feel the way the air fills your lungs, the way your chest expands and settles. This is the only clock that matters now. The steady rise and fall of your breath. Since your world is bounded by the high earthen walls of the trench, your eyes naturally drift upward, to the only horizon available to you, the sky. From the bottom of the trench, the sky looks like a long, narrow ribbon of light, a moving tapestry of clouds that serves as the only entertainment in this subterranean theater. You watch a cloud. It is a vast, towering mass of white, its edges soft and frayed like unspun wool. It moves with an agonizing slowness, so slow that its progress is only visible if you pick a point on the parapet, protruding root, or a specific sandbag, and watch how the cloud gradually overtakes it. As you watch, your mind begins to wander, playing a gentle game of recognition. That cloud there, with the long, trailing tail. It looks like a horse running through a field in summer. Another, smaller and more compact, looks like a cottage with smoke curling from a chimney. You follow the horse until it stretches, thins, and eventually dissolves into the blue. Then you turn your attention to the cottage, watching as the wind you cannot feel up there pulls it apart, turning the roof into a sail and the chimney into a cloud of birds. The movement of the clouds is hypnotic. It is a slow, liquid dance that pulls the tension from your eyes. You find yourself matching the rhythm of your thoughts to the movement above. There is no hurry. The clouds are in no rush to reach the horizon, and neither are you. You are content to simply be a witness to their passage, a silent observer of a world that is completely untouched by the mud and the wire. When your eyes grow tired of the brightness above, they settle on the wall of the trench directly in front of you. At first glance, it is just a mass of brown clay and burlap. But as the minutes turn into an hour, the wall begins to reveal a hidden, complex geography. You focus on a single sandbag. It is made of rough, tan-colored jute, the weave of the fabric visible and intricate. You trace the lines of the threads, seeing how they cross and overlap, creating a sturdy, resilient mesh. In one corner, a thread has come loose, a tiny, frayed filament that shivers slightly in a phantom breeze. You watch that thread for a long time, marveling at its persistence. A small beetle, its shell a deep, iridescent black, emerges from a crevice in the clay. It moves with a frantic, determined energy, its tiny legs grappling with the obstacles of the sandbag's surface. For the beetle, this sandbag is a mountain range, a vast and treacherous landscape. You watch its progress with a quiet, detached interest. It reaches a fold in the fabric, pauses as if considering its options, and then disappears into the dark shadow of a seam. You find yourself wondering where it is going. Does it have a home in the earth? Does it know that it is walking on the edge of a great human drama? Or is its world limited to the scent of the jute and the temperature of the clay? These small, quiet questions fill the empty spaces of the afternoon, providing a gentle anchor for your wandering mind further down the wall. A trickle of water from the recent rain has carved a miniature canyon in the mud. The water has dried now, leaving behind a smooth, polished track that glints in the light. You trace the path of the canyon with your eyes, following its twists and turns, seeing where it branched around a stone or carved a deeper pool in a hollow. It is a landscape in miniature, a tiny frozen record of the storm. Time in the trench is not measured in minutes or seconds, but in the slow movement of shadows. When you first sat down, the shadow of the parapet was a sharp, dark line at the edge of the duckboards. Now, as the sun moves across the sky, that line has crept forward, inch by silent inch, until it has reached the middle of the trench dot. You watch the shadow. It doesn't move with a visible motion. It simply is further along than it was the last time you looked. You find yourself making a quiet game of it. You choose a small pebble on the ground and tell yourself that you will sit perfectly still until the shadow touches it. You wait. You feel the weight of your limbs, the heaviness of your hands resting on your knees. Your body feels as though it is slowly merging with the earth, becoming a part of the trench itself. You are no longer a person waiting. You are a feature of the landscape. The shadow touches the pebble. You feel a small, quiet sense of accomplishment. Then you choose another marker, discarded button, or a splash of dried mud, and the process begins again. This counting of the shadows is a way of domesticating time, of taking the vast, frightening expanse of the war and breaking it down into small, manageable pieces. You listen to the silence. It is a thick, layered silence that is full of small, subtle sounds. You hear the distant, rhythmic clink 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 of a shovel somewhere far down the line, a man improving his home. One spadeful of earth at a time. You hear the soft, dry rustle of a rat moving through a pile of empty tins. A sound like autumn leaves skittering across a pavement. You hear the breathing of the man sitting 10 feet away from you, a slow, steady rasp that tells you that you are not alone in this stillness. And far, far away, there is the heartbeat of the front, the low, muffled thud of a heavy gun. It is so distant that it is more of a vibration in the soles of your feet than a sound in your ears. It is a reminder that the world is still turning, that the great machinery of history is still grinding away. But here, in your little patch of earth, it is irrelevant. Here, There is only the shadow and the pebble. The state of trench sleeps, the afternoon deepens. You slip into what the men call trench sleep. It is not a deep, heavy slumber, but a thin, transparent layer of consciousness. You are still awake, still aware of the world around you, but your thoughts have slowed to a crawl. You are drifting on the surface of your own mind. In this state, memories begin to float to the surface like bubbles in a quiet pond. They are not memories of great events, but of small, sensory details. The sound of a garden gate creaking on its hinges. The smell of cold linoleum in a hallway. The way the light used to hit the kitchen table at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, turning a glass of water into a prism of color. These memories are vivid and comforting. You don't try to hold on to them. You simply let them wash over you. You are back in that kitchen, feeling the warmth of the wood, hearing the distant hum of a bee against the window pane. You are back in the garden, the smell of damp earth and lavender filling your nose. These are the things you are protecting, the quiet, beautiful fragments of a life that exists just beyond the reach of the mud. Your body feels incredibly heavy now, as if the gravity of the earth has increased. Your head tilts forward, your chin resting on the collar of your tunic. The wool is scratchy and warm against your skin. You feel a deep, profound sense of relaxation spreading through your muscles. The ache in your back has faded into a dull, distant hum. Your fingers, once cold and stiff, are now limp and still. You are waiting. You are simply waiting. The sun is lower now, the light turning from a pale gold to a deep, honeyed amber. The sky above the trench is beginning to blush with the first hints of pink and orange. The long afternoon is drawing to a close, but the waiting does not end. It simply changes its character, shifting from the bright, clear stillness of the day to the soft, velvet expectation of the twilight. You open your eyes for a moment, watching the way the amber light catches the dust motes dancing in the air. They swirl and spin in the still atmosphere, tiny, glowing points of light that look like a galaxy in miniature. You watch them until your eyelids grow heavy again, and you let yourself drift back into the quiet of the great wait. You are aware of the other men in the section. They are all doing the same thing. Some are leaning against the walls, their helmets tilted over their eyes. Others are sitting in the doorways of the dugouts, their hands idle in their laps. There is a profound sense of shared purpose in this inactivity. The purple haze of the twilight has deepened into a velvety, star-flecked blackness. The trench is no longer a scar on the earth. It has become a sanctuary of shadows. Above, the sky is a vast, silent ocean, and below, the world has narrowed to the small, warm circle of a single candle's glow. This is the hour of the post. It is the time when the heavy, physical reality of the mud and the wire recedes, replaced by the weightless, powerful presence of words. There is a specific sound that heralds this moment, the soft, rhythmic thud-thud of the corporal's boots on the duckboards, accompanied by the rustle of a heavy canvas bag. In this world of steel and stone, the sound of paper is the most beautiful music there is. It is the sound of a bridge being built across the sea, a fragile, invisible line connecting this hole in the ground to the parlors, kitchens, and gardens of a life that feels like a dream. You were sitting in your dugout, the candle stuck to a ration tin, its flame a steady, golden teardrop. The corporal stops at the entrance, his face a map of shadows. He reaches into the bag and pulls out a small bundle tied with a piece of twine. He calls your name, his voice low and respectful, as if he knows he is delivering something more precious than rations or ammunition. He hands you a small rectangular envelope. Take a moment to feel it. The paper is slightly cool to the touch, its edges softened by the long journey it has taken. It has travelled through sorting offices in London, across the churning grey waters of the Channel, through railheads and supply depots, and finally up the winding communication trenches to reach your hand. You can feel the faint texture of the stationery, perhaps a bit of linen weave or the smooth, cheap surface of a standard issue pad. Hold it to your nose. Before you even see the words, you can smell the home you left behind. It isn't just a scent, it's an atmosphere. It smells of a house that is warm and dry. There is a trace of lavender from a sachet kept in a drawer, a hint of wood smoke from a kitchen hearth, and the clean, sharp scent of soap. It is a smell that has no place in a trench, and for a heartbeat, it makes the walls of the dugout dissolve. You look at the handwriting on the front. It is familiar, the long, elegant loops of a wife's hand, or perhaps the careful, upright script of a mother. You trace the letters of your own name, seeing them through the eyes of the person who wrote them. To them, you are not a number, not a soldier, not a shadow in the mud. You are a son, a husband, a brother. The ink is a deep, faded blue, and in some places the pen has pressed hard into the paper, leaving a physical indentation that you can feel with your thumb. You don't open it immediately. In the trench, you learn to savor anticipation. You tuck the envelope into the breast pocket of your tunic for a few minutes, letting the warmth of your body seep into the paper. You want the letter to know you are here. You want to feel its weight against your heart before you invite its voice into your mind. When you finally decide to open it, you do so with a slow, deliberate care. You don't tear the paper. You use your thumb to gently prise the flap open, hearing the soft scritch of the glue giving way. You pull out the sheets of paper, 2 or 3 pages, folded neatly. As you unfold them, the paper makes a crisp, dry sound that seems incredibly loud in the quiet of the dugout. The light of the candle catches the words. You begin to read, but you don't read for information. You read for the rhythm. You read for the pauses, my dearest. The words move slowly. You read a sentence, and then you stop. You let the meaning of that sentence expand in your mind like a drop of ink in clear water. The frost was heavy on the windows this morning, and the garden is tucked away for the winter. You close your eyes. You can see that window. You can see the patterns of the ice, like fern leaves frozen in glass. You can see the garden, the brown stalks of the summer flowers standing silent in the cold. You remember the sound of the back door clicking shut, the way the air felt on your face when you stepped out to gather wood. You can hear the distant whistle of a kettle on the stove, and the rhythmic ticking of the clock in the hallway tick-tock measuring a time that is peaceful and predictable. The letter tells you about the small things. The price of eggs. The way the neighbor's cat has taken to sleeping on the porch. The news that the old oak tree at the end of the lane has lost its last leaves. These are the details that matter. They are the anchors that keep you from drifting away into the grey anonymity of the war. They remind you that there is a world where the most important event of the day is the arrival of the milkman or the blossoming of a rose. As you read, you are aware of the other men in the dugout. They, too, are holding pieces of paper. The air is thick with a communal, concentrated silence. Every man is on a private journey, travelling back across the miles to a different hearth, a different face. No one speaks. To speak would be to interrupt a sacred conversation. You see a soldier across from you, his head bowed, his lips moving slightly as he reads the words to himself. He is a young man, but in the light of the candle, his face looks ancient, softened by a profound, quiet longing. He reaches the end of a page and turns it over with a hand that is slightly trembling, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of the love contained in those few lines of ink. This is the emotional restraint of the trench. There are no outbursts of grief, no loud expressions of joy. It is a deep, interior experience. You feel a lump in your throat, a tightness in your chest, but you keep your face still. You hold the emotion inside, letting it warm you like the tea we spoke of earlier. This restraint is not about coldness. It is about preservation. You hold the love close so that it doesn't shatter in the harsh air of the front. You reach the end of the letter, but you don't put it away. You start again. The second reading is deeper. You look for the things that aren't said. You look at the way a word is crossed out and rewritten, wondering what the writer was thinking in that moment. You notice a small smudge of ink at the bottom of the page, and you imagine the writer's hand resting there, their mind far away, thinking of you. You read the letter 3 times, 4 times, until you have memorized the position of every comma and the shape of every letter. The words become a part of you. They settle into your memory, providing a new layer of protection against the cold and the dark. You think about the normal life this letter represents, a life of soft beds, of clean clothes, of meals shared around a table where everyone is safe. You remember the sound of laughter in a room full of light. You remember the feeling of a hand in yours, the skin warm and soft. These memories are not painful. They are a source of strength. They are the why that lies behind the what. Now, it is your turn to speak. You reach into your pack and pull out your writing kit. A small, battered pad of paper and a pencil stub. The pencil is short, requiring you to hold it close to the lead. You sharpen it with your pocket knife, the shavings falling like tiny, dark feathers onto the dirt floor. Writing a letter in the trench is an act of translation. You have to take the reality of this world, the mud, the wet wool, the endless waiting, and translate it into something that won't break the hearts of those at home. You practice a gentle censorship of the soul. You don't write about the cold that never leaves your bones. You don't write about the way the earth smells of age and iron. Instead, you write about the tea. You write about the funny thing the corporal said during breakfast. You write about the skylark you heard in the morning. I am quite well, you begin. It is the most common lie in history, but it is a lie told out of love. You want them to see you as you were, and as you will be again. You describe the sunset you saw earlier, the way the orange light caught the edges of the clouds. You tell them that the socks they sent are the best you've ever had. You tell them that you think of them every time you look at the stars. The act of writing is slow. Your fingers are a bit stiff, and the pencil scratches across the paper with a dry, rhythmic sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. You choose each word with care, leaning on your mess tin to provide a steady surface. You find yourself pausing, staring into the candle flame, trying to find a way to convey the depth of your feeling without alarming them. You want to tell them that you love them, but the words feel too small. So you write about the small things instead. You ask if the garden gate has been fixed. You ask if the dog still sleeps in the same spot by the fire. By asking these questions, you are stepping back into your home, walking through the rooms, checking on the world you left behind. Asterisk, the candle is burning low now, the wax pooling in the ration tin like a small, white lake. You finish your letter, signing it with a simple, heartfelt closing. You fold the paper carefully, mimicking the folds of the letter you received. You place it in an envelope, write the address in your best hand, and set it aside for the morning ration party to take back to the post. Then you take the letter you received and you place it back in your breast pocket. You feel the rustle of the paper against your tunic. It is a physical presence, a shield of words that you will carry with you onto the fire step and into the night. The candle flame has finally surrendered, leaving a thin, ghostly trail of white smoke that dances for a moment in the darkness before vanishing into the still air of the dugout. The world of ink and paper, the world of the letters we explored together, has been folded away and tucked close to the chest. Now we enter the deepest part of the journey, the hours of the true night, where the trench becomes a world of velvet shadows and the only light comes from the distant, ancient stars. As you lie there, the darkness is not empty. It is a thick, textured presence that settles over you like a second blanket. It feels heavy and protective, a subterranean silence that mutes the rest of the world. In this space, the boundaries of the trench seem to soften. The walls of clay and the timber beams are no longer visible, but you can feel them. You can feel the immense weight of the earth above you and beside you, holding you in a vast, silent embrace. It is a grounded feeling, a sense of being anchored to the very heart of the world. Take a slow, deep breath. The air has changed again. It has grown colder, crisper, losing the humid warmth of the evening meal. It carries the sharp, clean scent of the night, a mixture of frozen dew, the metallic temps of the wire, and the faint, lingering aroma of tobacco from a pipe smoked an hour ago. Feel the cool air as it enters your nostrils, a refreshing contrast to the warmth beneath your blankets. In the dugout, sleeping is an art of layers. You are not just lying on a bed. You are constructing a fortress of warmth. Beneath you is the wire mesh of the bunk, which gives slightly under your weight with a soft, metallic groan. On top of that, perhaps a layer of dry straw or a folded piece of sacking to dampen the chill of the metal. Then there is you. You are still wearing your uniform, the thick wool tunic and the trousers that have become a part of your skin. This layer of wool is your primary shield. You feel the weight of your greatcoat spread over you like a heavy, protective hand. It is thick and stiff, holding the heat of your body and preventing the night air from stealing it away. On top of the coat, you have pulled your rough wool blanket, tucking the edges under your feet and around your shoulders. Asterisk beside you. Your chum, the soldier you share this small space with, is also settling in. There is no need for space or privacy here. Instead, there is a quiet, unspoken reliance on one another's presence. You lie back to back, feeling the gentle, rhythmic pressure of his breathing through the layers of your coats. This shared warmth is a fundamental comfort. It is a reminder that you are not alone in the dark, that you are part of a living, breathing chain of humanity stretched across the silent fields of France. In the darkness, the volume of the world drops. If men speak at all, it is in hushed, melodic whispers. These are not conversations of strategy or fear. They are the quiet, drifting thoughts of men who are half submerged in the world of dreams. Do you think the frost will hold till morning? One voice asks, a soft rasp in the gloom. Aye, comes the reply, the stars are too bright for it to rain. The voices are low and rhythmic, blending with the sounds of the trench itself. You hear the slow drip of water from a timber drop. Dropper, steady, liquid metronome. You hear the soft rustle of a mouse in the straw, a tiny, busy sound that emphasizes the vastness of the silence around it. You hear the wind as it passes over the top of the trench, a long, low sigh that sounds like the breath of the world. These sounds don't disturb you, they soothe you. They are the evidence that the world is still there, that the environment is functioning in its slow, nocturnal way. You find yourself focusing on the rhythm of the water drop, letting it pull your thoughts away from the waking world. With every drop, a little bit more of your tension dissolves. With every sigh of the wind, your limbs grow heavier, sinking deeper into the bunk. As you drift between wakefulness and slumber, your mind enters a liminal space. This is the hour of half sleep, where the reality of the trench begins to interweave with the landscapes of your memory. You might hear the rhythmic clattering of a duckboard outside, and in your mind it becomes the sound of a garden gate swinging in the wind. You feel the scratch of the wool blanket against your chin, and for a moment, it is the feeling of high summer grass as you lie in a field back home. The smell of the earth wall beside your head becomes the scent of a freshly ploughed furrow in a valley you haven't seen for a year in this state. Your thoughts are not linear. They are like reflections on the surface of moving water, glimpsing faces, places, and moments of quiet joy. You see the way the light used to catch the dust in the parlor. You hear the laughter of a child in a distant room. You feel the warmth of a sun that never sets. These images are gentle and blurred at the edges, floating past you without demand or urgency. You aren't trying to remember. You are simply allowing the memories to visit you. They are guests in the house of your mind, bringing with them a sense of profound peace. They remind you that the world of the trench is just one layer of existence, and that beneath it, the world of beauty and light remains untouched. While you rest, the life of the trench continues in a different key. Above you, on the fire step, the men on watch are standing like silent sentinels. They are shadows against a slightly lighter shade of black. They don't move. They lean against the parapet, their rifles resting in the crooks of their arms, their eyes fixed on the misty expanse of no man's land. The air up there is colder, moving in soft currents that catch the edges of their scarves. They watch the sky. Every few minutes, a flare very light rises from somewhere in the distance. It is a slow, graceful ascent, a tiny spark that suddenly blooms into a brilliant magnesium white flower. From your bunk, you can see the faint, ghostly reflection of these flares. They don't bring a harsh light into the dugout. Instead, they cast long, slow-moving shadows that dance across the ceiling beams. The light is silver and ethereal, lasting only for a few seconds before it fades, leaving the darkness feeling even deeper and more protective than before. The men on watch are the guardians of your sleep. You feel a quiet gratitude for their presence, a sense of being watched over. Their stillness allows your rest. Their vigilance is the wall that keeps the world at bay. You hear the soft clink of a canteen or the muffled sound of a boot shifting on the fire step, and it serves as a lullaby, a signal that all is well, that the watch is set, and that you are free to descend further into the quiet. As the night moves toward the small hours of 3 or 4 in the morning, the cold reaches its peak. It is a living cold, a presence that fills every corner of the trench. It isn't a biting, aggressive cold. It is a slow, steady pressure. You feel it on your forehead and the tip of your nose, the only parts of you exposed to the air. It feels like a cool, silken mask. You pull your blanket a little higher, tucking your chin into the wool. The warmth you have generated inside your cocoon feels even more precious now. It is a small internal fire that you tend with your own breathing. You notice the way your breath looks in the faint starlight that filters into the dugout. It is a delicate white mist that curls away and vanishes. It is the visible evidence of your life, a rhythmic, repeating cloud that marks the passage of the night. In and out, the mist appears, lingers, and fades. In and out. It is the most basic, most beautiful rhythm in the world. There is a moment in the middle of the night when the stillness becomes so absolute that it feels as though time itself has stopped. The guns are silent. The wind has died down. Even the water has stopped dripping. In this moment, the trench feels like an ancient cathedral carved into the earth. You are lying in a space that is older than memory, a quiet chamber where the cares of the world cannot reach. The weight of the earth around you is not a burden. It is a shield. It is the weight of history, the weight of the soil that has nurtured life for eons. You feel a deep, soul-level tiredness, not the exhaustion of work, but the profound readiness for rest. Your muscles have completely let go. Your hands are open and still. Your heart is beating with a slow, steady pulse that matches the heartbeat of the earth. You are no longer a soldier. You are no longer a man with a name or a past. You are simply a consciousness resting in the dark, a part of the vast, silent night. The darkness is your friend. It hides the scars of the landscape. It mutes the colors of the war. It wraps you in a world where only the essential things remain: the warmth of a blanket, the presence of a friend, the rhythm of a breath. The night is long, and it is generous. It provides the time and the space for the spirit to mend itself. As you lie in the perfect stillness of the deep night, you are unaware that far to the east, the first, infinitesimal change in the light is beginning to occur. But that is for later. For now, the world is still black. The stars are still bright. The watch is still standing. You are safe. You are warm. You are held in the arms of the earth. Let the darkness fill your mind. Let the rhythm of your breathing carry you down into the softest, deepest part of sleep. There is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to go. You are exactly where you are meant to be, in the quiet, holy center of the night. The wire bunks creak softly as the earth settles. The greatcoats hold their heat. The dreams continue their slow, liquid dance. The deepest hours of the night have begun to thin, and the air in the dugout is shifting. It is no longer the heavy, stagnant air of midnight, but something subtly energized by the approaching dawn. As you lie there, suspended between the world of dreams and the return of the day, you become acutely aware of the presence of the men around you. This is the hour of the silent brotherhood, a time when the bonds of friendship are not spoken, but felt in the rhythmic rise and fall of chests and the shared warmth of a small, cramped space in the civilian world. Friendship is often built on words-on shared jokes, long conversations, and the exchange of ideas. But here, in the narrow veins of the earth, friendship has been stripped down to its most elemental form. It is a friendship of presence. It is the profound, quiet comfort of knowing that another human being is breathing the same air, enduring the same damp, and waiting for the same light. It is a trust that is built not in the heat of a moment, but in the slow, glacial passage of thousands of quiet minutes. The first movement of the day is often a small, singular gesture from the man sleeping beside you, your chum. Perhaps it is a gentle nudge of a shoulder, or the way he shifts his weight to give you a little more room as you both begin to wake. There is no good morning whispered in the dark. Instead, there is a slow, mutual acknowledgement of existence. You feel his presence as a solid, grounding force. You watch him in the dim ray light that filters through the dugout opening. You know the map of his face as well as you know the geography of your own home. You know the way his brow furrows when he is concentrating on a letter, and the way his hands, rough and stained with the earth, move with a surprising delicacy when he is cleaning a piece of equipment. You have seen him at his most tired, and he has seen you at yours. There are no secrets left between you, and in that transparency, there is a peace that passes understanding. As you both sit up, the wire bunks groaning in unison, he reaches out and hands you your water bottle. He doesn't ask if you're thirsty. He simply knows. Your fingers brush against his as you take the bottle, a brief, accidental contact of skin that feels like a silent oath. This is the currency of trench friendship, small, practical acts of care that bypass the need for language. The order for the dawn stand too arrives as a ripple of movement, rather than a shout. You and your comrades move out into the trench, lining up along the fire step. It is the coldest part of the morning, the hour when the frost bites deepest. You stand shoulder to shoulder, your greatcoat pressing against the wool of the man to your left and the man to your right. This physical contact is vital. It creates a circuit of warmth that defies the damp chill of the mist. You can feel the slight tremor of the man beside you as he suppresses a shiver, and instinctively, you lean a little closer, offering the heat of your own body as a shield. He doesn't thank you. He doesn't need to. He simply adjusts his stance, his shoulder a steady anchor against yours. You look out over the parapet together. The world is a vast, white sea of fog, hiding the wire and the craters. In this moment of shared vigilance, there is a powerful sense of unity. You are all looking toward the same horizon, all listening for the same sounds, all hoping for the same sun to break through the grey. This shared gaze is the ultimate expression of solidarity. You are a single entity, a long, breathing wall of humanity, standing guard over one another's lives. As the light grows and the tension of the stand too begins to melt into the routine of the morning, a new ritual begins. It is the lighting of the first cigarette, or perhaps the small stove for tea. This is a moment of exquisite, quiet coordination. One man produces a tin of tobacco, another the papers. A third man, usually the one with the steadiest hands, prepares the match. You will lean in, creating a small, sheltered cave with your bodies to protect the tiny, flickering flame from the wind. For a few seconds, your faces are illuminated by a warm orange glow, your breath mingling in the center of the circle. In that brief light, you see each other clearly, not as soldiers, but as friends. You see the tired lines around the eyes, the smudge of soot on a cheek, the ghost of a smile. The match is blown out, and the smoke begins to curl upward, sweet and aromatic. You pass the cigarette or the mug of tea from hand to hand. Each man takes a sip or a pull and passes it on, a communal cup that nourishes the spirit as much as the body. This sharing is not about scarcity. It is about the affirmation of the group. It is a way of saying, what I have is yours, and what you have is mine. It is the most basic form of love, enacted with a dented tin mug and a wisp of smoke in the afternoon. As the long hours of waiting return, you sit together in the sun. You might be mending a tear in a tunic, or simply staring at the opposite wall of the trench. There is no pressure to fill the silence. In a world where every sound could be significant, silence is a gift you give to one another. This shared silence is where the deepest trust is built. It is the trust that allows you to close your eyes for 20 minutes, knowing that your friend is awake and watching. It is the trust that allows you to speak of your fears or your hopes for the future, knowing they will be held in a place of safety. You watch a friend across the trench as he struggles with a stubborn knot in his pack. You don't ask if he needs help. You simply reach over and place your thumb on the cord, holding it steady so he can work the loop. He nods, a single, sharp movement of the head, and you go back to your own task. This is the language of the Liner series of small, helpful interventions that keep the machinery of daily life moving. The bond between chums, usually pairs of men who have stayed together since training, is something that defies traditional definitions of friendship. It is more like a marriage of necessity and soul. You have reached a point where you can read the tilt of his head or the tension in his shoulders and know exactly what he is thinking. You know that when he is unusually quiet, he is thinking about his daughter's birthday, which passed a week ago. You know that when he hums a certain low, repetitive tune, he is feeling the weight of the damp in his joints. In response, you don't offer platitudes. You might simply offer him a bit of extra sugar from your ration, or tell a story about a completely unrelated topic to pull him out of his own mind. He does the same for you. When the letters from home don't arrive and the world feels thin and grey, he is the one who finds a reason to laugh. He might point out the absurd way a rat is trying to drag a biscuit tin, or recall a ridiculous moment from basic training. This humor is a lifeline, a way of maintaining a sense of self in a world that tries to strip it away. Friendship in the trench is also a deeply physical thing. There is no room for the boundaries of the civilian world. You help each other with the things that are impossible to do alone. You help him wrap his puttees so they are tight and even. You check his back for the telltale signs of a developing sore from a heavy pack. You might even help him wash, pouring a small trickle of water over his hands so he can scrub away the worst of the clay. There is a profound dignity in this care. It is a recognition of the value of the human body, even when it is covered in mud and exhausted by labor. By taking care of his body, you are taking care of his spirit. You are telling him that he matters, that he is worth the effort, that he is still a man. You remember one evening as the rain began to fall, how your friend took off his own dry scarf and wrapped it around your neck because you were coughing. He didn't have a spare. He simply decided that your need was greater than his. When you tried to protest, he just looked at you with an expression that brooked no argument, a look of fierce, quiet loyalty. You wore that scarf for 3 days, and every time you felt the warmth of the wool. You felt the strength of that look as the sun begins to set, casting long, bruised shadows across the trench. You and your friends settle in for the evening. The conversation is low, a murmur of voices that sounds like the wind in the trees. You talk about the things you will do when you get home, the pubs you will visit, the hills you will climb, the people you will hold. But the most important things are still left unsaid. You don't talk about the fact that you would do anything for the man sitting across from you. You don't talk about the way his presence is the only thing that makes the long nights bearable. You don't have to. It is written in the way you share your rations, the way you look out for one another in the dark, and the way you stand together day after day. In the quiet of the earth, this is a love that has been forged in the furnace of experience and cooled in the damp of the trench. It is a love that is as solid as the timber beams and as deep as the clay walls. It is the ultimate human response to the inhumanity of the world. The rhythm of the trench, which we have spent so many nights exploring together, is a creature of habit. It is built on the predictable squelch of a boot, the scheduled arrival of the tea, and the reliable rotation of the watch. But as the days stretch into a new week, a subtle change begins to ripple through the earth. It is not a loud change. It does not come with a trumpet blast or a sudden flash of light. It arrives like a shift in the tide, quiet, insistent, and felt primarily in the marrow of the bones. There is a specific kind of stillness that descends upon the line when the routine begins to fray at the edges. It is a thick, heavy silence, different from the peaceful quiet of a lazy afternoon. It feels as though the very air has become more dense, as if the oxygen itself is weighted with the things left unsaid. As you lie in your bunk tonight, feel that weight. It is not a burden of fear, but a blanket of anticipation, a communal drawing of breath before a long-held note is finally played. The first indications are material, found in the small, physical objects that begin to appear in the storage areas near the communication trenches. You see them as you pass by on your way to the latrines or the water point. There are new crates. They would clean and pale against the dark, wet clay. They don't smell of old rations or well-worn equipment. They smell of fresh pine and the sharp, industrial tang of factory grease. You watch as the fatigue parties move these crates with a new kind of economy. There is less banter today. The usual jokes about the weight of the boxes or the quality of the contents are replaced by a focused, rhythmic efficiency. You see rolls of white tape being delivered, long, ghostly ribbons of cotton that catch the faint light of the moon. You know what they are for: to mark out paths through the dark, to create a guide where there is none. But for now, they simply sit in neat, silent stacks, waiting. Then there is the ammunition. It arrives in greater quantities, the heavy metal boxes making a dull, solid thud as they are set down. You see the brass casings of the shells glistening in the half-light, looking like rows of small, golden candles. There is a weight to this new abundance. In the trench, you learn to live with scarcity, to cherish every scrap and every bullet. To see so much of anything is a signal that the normal world is receding, and something exceptional is moving into its place. You observe the officers. Their behavior is perhaps the most reliable barometer of the coming shift. Usually, the junior officers move through the trench with a practiced air of casual authority, stopping to chat about the weather or the news from home. But today, their movements are different. They are more frequent, their boots clattering on the duckboards with a purposeful, rapid rhythm. You see the captain standing at the corner of a traverse, a map spread out on a small folding table. It is a new map, the paper crisp and white, its edges unfrayed. He is studying it with a concentrated intensity, his finger tracing a line across the contour marks. He doesn't look up as you pass. He is lost in a world of geometry and distance, a world of points and objectives. Beside him, the subaltern is polishing his binoculars. It is a slow, repetitive motion, the soft cloth circling the glass again and again. There is no urgency in his movement, but his eyes are fixed on the distant horizon, looking not at the mud of today, but at the possibilities of tomorrow. When he does speak to you, his voice is quiet, perhaps a little more formal than usual. He asks if your boots are in good repair. He asks if you have enough water. He doesn't look you in the eye, but he stays a moment longer than necessary, as if he is trying to memorize the sight of the men under his command. This change in the officers is not one of tension, but of a sudden, profound focus. They have become the architects of a coming event, and the weight of that architecture is visible in the set of their shoulders and the way they hold their pipes, forgotten and unlit, in their hands. In the absence of official news, the latrine rumors begin to circulate. These are the whispers of the trench, the stories that travel through the communication lines like wind through dry grass. They are never loud. They are shared over a shared match or a whispered conversation in the dark of the dugout. The artillery is moving up, someone whispers. I saw the teams on the road last night, 3 miles back. They're bringing up extra rum, says another. Double rations. These rumors are not treated as gospel, but as a way of processing the change. They are the mind's attempt to map the fog of the future. You listen to them with a detached, quiet interest. You don't ask for details, and you don't offer any. You simply absorb them, adding them to the collection of signs you have observed for yourself. The conversation in the dugout changes, too. The talk of home, which we explored in the hour of the letters, becomes more precious and more frequent. Men tell stories they have told a dozen times before, but they tell them with a new tenderness. They talk about the smell of a specific bakery or the sound of the wind in a particular grove of trees. It is as if they are reaffirming their connection to the world of light, making sure the anchor is secure before the tide pulls them further out to sea. Without being told, the men begin to prepare. It is a slow, methodical process, a turning inward of attention. You see a soldier sitting on the fire step, his head bowed over his equipment. He is not just cleaning his rifle. He is inspecting every screw, every spring, every inch of the walnut stock. He moves with a hypnotic slowness, his rag tracing the lines of the metal with a strange, quiet affection. He checks his gas mask, pulling it from its satchel and examining the rubber and the glass eyepieces for the smallest sign of a crack. He folds it back with a precision that borders on the religious. He checks his mess tin, his water bottle, the straps of his webbing. He is making sure that his world is in order, that everything he owns is ready and reliable. There is no panic in this preparation. It is a form of meditation. By focusing on the small, tangible objects in your care, you are taming the vast, intangible uncertainty of the future. You are asserting control over your immediate environment. You are saying, I am ready. My gear is sound. I have done what I can. You find yourself doing the same. You take your pocket knife and sharpen the pencil stub you use for your letters. You trim a loose thread from your tunic. You rearrange the contents of your pack so that the weight is perfectly balanced. These small acts provide a sense of profound calm. They are the domestic rituals of the soldier, the way you maintain your dignity in a world of mud. As the day fades and the evening stand to approaches, you notice a change in the way the men look at the landscape. They are no longer just looking for movement or signs of the enemy. They are looking at the ground itself with a new, analytical gaze. They study the way the wire is tangled. They watch the way the mist pools in a particular shell hole. They look at the slope of the land and the way the shadows fall as the sun dips below the horizon. They are memorizing the world. It is a look of intense, quiet observation, a gaze that looks through the present moment and into the one that follows. When you look at your chum, you see it in his eyes, too. There is a new clarity there, a stripping away of the trivial. He looks at you, and for a second, there is a flash of that deep, unspoken understanding we spoke of before. He doesn't say, I'm worried or I'm ready. He simply nods, a small, slow movement that says, I see it, too. We are here together. This shared realization is a powerful bond. It is the final layer of the brotherhood. You are all part of the same secret, the same rising tide. You are no longer individuals with separate lives. You are a single, breathing organism, waiting for the signal to act. The most remarkable thing about this time is the emotional restraint. There are no displays of bravado, no dramatic speeches, no weeping. The British soldier of 1915 is a master of the quiet heart. He keeps his emotions tucked away, much like the letters in his breast pocket. This restraint is not a lack of feeling. It is the ultimate expression of it. It is a way of protecting one another. By remaining calm, you offer calm to the man beside you. By maintaining your routine, you offer stability. By keeping your voice low and your movements steady, you create a sanctuary of order in a world that is beginning to tremble. You feel a deep, quiet pride in this restraint. You look along the line and see the silhouettes of the men you have lived with, laughed with, and waited with. They are standing still, their breath rising in small, rhythmic clouds. They are the finest men you have ever known, and their stillness is a testament to their strength. Night falls, and it is a night of profound, velvety beauty. The stars are out in their millions, cold and brilliant, looking down on the labyrinth of the trenches with an ancient indifference. The air is still, so still that you can hear the faint, musical chime of a wire catching on a picket 100 yards away. Tonight, the sleep in the dugout is different. It is not the deep, heavy sleep of previous nights, but a light, expectant rest. You lie on your bunk, the wire mesh supporting you as it always has. The smell of the earth is familiar, the weight of the blanket is comforting, but your mind is awake, listening to the silence. The final morning arrives, not with a start, but with a slow, iridescent unfolding of light that seems to possess a clarity you have never noticed before. Throughout this journey, we have walked through the mud, felt the bite of the rain, and shared the quiet company of the letters and the tea. But today, on this 10th and final day of our exploration, the world has reached a state of absolute, crystalline stillness. It is as if the earth itself has decided to hold its breath, creating a pocket of time where every detail is magnified, every sound is a prayer, and every breath is a gift. As you lie in your bunk for the last time in this series, feel the profound weight of the silence. It is not the silence of an empty room, but the rich, resonant silence of a cathedral. The air in the dugout is cool and remarkably sweet. The usual scents of damp earth and old wool have been overlaid by a fresh green breeze that has drifted over from the meadows far behind the lines. It is the scent of growth, of renewal, of a world that continues to bloom regardless of the lines drawn across its face. Take a deep, slow breath. Let the air settle into your lungs. Feel the way your body occupies this small, wooden-framed space. You have become a part of this earth, a familiar inhabitant of the clay. When you finally rise and step out into the trench, the light of the sun is hitting the upper lip of the parapet at a low, slanting angle. Today, your eyes are drawn to things you have passed 1,000 times without seeing. You look at the sandbags, thousands of them, stacked with a rugged, repetitive beauty. You notice the way the light catches the individual fibers of the jute, turning the rough fabric into a shimmering, golden mesh. You see the tiny, crystalline grains of sand leaking from a small tear, forming a miniature hourglass that trickles silently onto the duckboards, looking up at the very edge of the trench. Where the mud meets the sky, you see a single, solitary poppy. It has managed to take root in a handful of soil wedged between two sandbags. The petals are a red so deep and vibrant they seem to glow from within like a small, burning coal. You watch as a gentle wind moves the flower. It doesn't snap or break. It bows with a fluid, graceful resilience. You spend a long time watching the way the shadows of the petals dance across the clay. A tiny, silent ballet performed for an audience of one. Beside the poppy, a patch of wild grass has turned a pale, straw-like yellow. Each blade is topped with a delicate head of seed, trembling in the breeze. You notice the intricate patterns of the frost that still lingers in the shadows of the grasstony, geometric forests of ice that are slowly melting into the earth. The world is a masterpiece of small, overlooked miracles, and today you have all the time in the world to witness them. The auditory world has undergone a similar transformation. The distant, rhythmic rumble that we have come to know as the heartbeat of the war has faded into an imperceptible vibration. In its place, the silence has become a canvas for the most delicate sounds. You hear the sound of a spider moving across a dry leaf at the bottom of the trencher. Tiny, brittle skitter-scratch that sounds as clear as a footstep. You hear the rhythmic drip, drop of water from a cooling pipe, each drop hitting a puddle with a clean, musical note that echoes in the still air, high above the wire. In a sky so blue it feels like an ache in the chest, a lark begins to sing. It is a cascading, silver thread of sound that falls from the heavens. The bird is invisible, lost in the brilliance of the light, but its song fills the entire valley. It is a melody of pure, unadulterated joy, a sound that has nothing to do with men or maps. You lean your head back against the cool clay and listen. The song seems to pull the remaining tension from your muscles, carrying your thoughts upward, away from the mud and into the vast, open freedom of the sky as the day progresses. You find yourself performing your daily rituals with a new slow-motion reverence. You pick up your mess tin to prepare your midday meal. You feel the weight of the aluminum, the dents and scratches that tell the story of your weeks in the line. You run your thumb over a particularly deep gouge, remembering the day it happened, and the memory is no longer sharp. It is smoothed by a sense of profound acceptance. You clean the tin with a piece of dry burlap, watching the metal brighten under your hand. It is a simple task, but you do it with the focus of a craftsman. Every movement is deliberate. Every gesture is an act of mindfulness. You are not just cleaning a dish. You are honoring the tool that has nourished you. You look at your rifle, resting against the wall. It is clean and oiled, its steel gleaming with a soft, blue-black luster. You don't see it as a weapon today. You see it as a companion, a piece of engineering that has shared your vigil. You touch the wood of the stock, feeling the warmth of the sun that has been soaking into it all morning. The wood is smooth and solid, a piece of a tree that once stood in a quiet forest, and you feel a connection to that distant, peaceful origin. You pull the photograph from your pocket one last time. The woman in the garden, the sunlight on the gate. You look at her face, not with a longing that hurts, but with a quiet, certain love. She is a part of you, as much as your own breath. The distance between the trench and that garden feels shorter today, as if the love itself has folded the map, bringing the two worlds together. You realize that you have never really left home, because you have carried the essence of it within you every step of the way. You look at the men around you. They are all caught in the same spell of stillness. The corporal is sitting on a crate, his hands idle in his lap, his eyes fixed on a distant cloud. He looks at peace. The lines of worry that have defined his face for so long have softened, as if the earth itself has reached up to smooth them away. Your chum is lying on the fire step, his helmet tilted over his eyes, his chest rising and falling in a deep, effortless rhythm. He is not just sleeping, He is resting in a state of total, unburdened trust. You watch the way his hand rests on the ground, the fingers curled loosely against the clay. There is no more need for words between you. The brotherhood has reached its completion. You have shared the bread, the rain, the letters, and the silence. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain. You share a look with a soldier passing by with a bucket of water. He stops for a second, and you both simply nod. It is a long, slow nod of mutual recognition. In that moment, you are both witnesses to the beauty of the day. You are both participants in the same profound acceptance. You are men who have found the center of the storm and discovered that it is quiet. The afternoon begins to melt into the evening, and the light undergoes its final, most spectacular transformation. The sun, dipping toward the horizon, turns the entire landscape into a world of molten gold. The mud of the trenches, once grey and drab, now glows with a warm, amber radiance. The shadows are long and soft, stretching across the ground like velvet fingers. The air grows cooler, but it is a refreshing, bracing cold. You wrap your greatcoat around you, feeling the heavy, familiar weight of the wool. It is a comfortable weight, like the arms of an old friend. You climb up onto the fire step for the final stand-to of our journey, looking out over no man's land. The wire is no longer a jagged barrier. In this light, it looks like a field of silver thorns, catching the last rays of the sun and turning them into 1,000 tiny sparks. The shell holes are filled with soft, purple shadows, looking like deep, quiet pools of water. The world looks ancient and undisturbed. You feel a sense of immense perspective. The lines of the trenches are just temporary marks on the skin of the earth, but the earth itself is eternal. It has seen 1,000 sunsets like this, and it will see 1,000 more. You are a part of this eternity. You are a note in a vast, unfolding symphony. You feel a sense of profound belonging to the earth, to the sky, to the men beside you, and to the people waiting at home. All the boundaries have dissolved. There is no here and there, no now and then. There is only the beautiful, golden always. The sun disappears below the rim of the world, leaving behind a sky of bruised purple and deep, darkening orange. The first star appears, a solitary, brilliant point of light hanging over the northern horizon. It is the same star that the shepherds watched, the same star that guided the sailors of old, the same star that shines over your house far away. The stand down is not an order today. It is a natural conclusion. The men move back into the dugouts with a slow, graceful dignity. You return to your bunk, feeling the familiar creak of the wire as you lie down. The darkness is total now, but it is not a void. It is a warm, protective envelope. You pull your blanket up to your chin. The wool is soft and warm. You hear the breathing of your friends, a rhythmic, communal heartbeat that fills the room. You hear the soft sigh of the wind as it passes over the trench, a long, lingering farewell to the day. Asterisk, your journey is complete. You have seen the life of the trench in all its small, human details. You have found the beauty in the mud, the comfort in the cold, and the love in the silence. You have learned that even in the most difficult of places, the human spirit can find a way to be still, to be kind, and to be at peace. Your eyelids are heavy, weighted with the golden light of the afternoon. Your mind is quiet, the thoughts drifting away like the smoke from a dying fire. You are no longer waiting for anything. You are simply here. You are present. You are whole.